The year is 2157. Humanity, in its endless quest for knowledge and survival, has cast its gaze beyond the familiar cradle of the solar system. We have become a species of starfarers, our hopes and dreams encased in metal and fire, hurtling through the infinite dark. 40 light years from Earth, a lonely beacon of human ingenuity, the starship Aurora, is completing a journey that has lasted over a decade. Its destination, a planet orbiting the star Gliese 581, a world that glows with a ruddy hue, a world they call Altheria. It promised a new beginning, a second chance for a species that had pushed its first home to the brink. But in the vast, silent theater of space, not all promises are kept. Some are doorways to wonders unimaginable. Others are gateways to ancient, sleeping curses. For Commander Ethan Cole and his crew, the time for questions was over. The time for answers had begun. Inside the cockpit of the Aurora, the silence was a living thing. It was the silence of deep space, a profound emptiness that pressed against the hull, a constant reminder of their isolation. Commander Ethan Cole sat in his command chair, his face etched with the fatigue of a decade-long journey. The lines around his eyes were deeper now, a roadmap of sleepless nights and weighty decisions. But his gaze, fixed on a growing sphere in the main view screen, held the same unwavering resolve that had gotten him selected for this mission. He blinked slowly, deliberately, as if to clear away the cobwebs of a long dream. There it was, Altheria, a swirling marble of crimson and rust, hanging against the black velvet of nothingness. It was beautiful, and it was terrifying. Mission Control, this is Aurora. We have successfully achieved stable orbit around Altheria. All systems are nominal. Primary, secondary, and tertiary checks are green. We're here. Beside him, the crew, a hand-picked family of brilliance, held their breath. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a biologist whose mind was a universe of curiosity, leaned forward, her nose almost touching the cool glass of the viewport. Her fingers twitched, eager to touch, to analyze, to understand. Jax Techmiller, the ship's chief engineer, a man who found more comfort in a Hummer reactor than in human conversation, scanned his console, his eyes darting across streams of data. Dr. Kenji Tanaka, the ship's soul, a linguist and anthropologist who believed communication could bridge any chasm, watched the planet with a look of profound reverence. And at the helm, young Rhea Carter, a pilot for whom this mission was the culmination of every childhood dream, kept her hand steady on the controls, her heart pounding a rhythm of pure exhilaration. Ethan, are you seeing the atmospheric readings? It's incredible. The oxygen levels are 20% higher than our most optimistic projections. The nitrogen-oxygen-argon mix is almost perfect. It's like the planet is ready for us, or ready to eat us. The spectrometer is picking up trace elements I can't identify. Biominerals, maybe. My filters are handling it, but it's not a sterile environment. Elena, be cautious. This place is as mysterious as it is beautiful. Ethan took a deep breath, the recycled air of the ship tasting stale in his mouth. He looked at his crew, at the mix of awe and apprehension on their faces. They were the best of humanity, and they were entirely alone. Rhea, you heard the lady. The planet seems to be rolling out the welcome mat. Initiate landing sequence. Target zone, Crimson Valley. Keep it slow and steady. No surprises. Initiating descent sequence. Commander. Aurora, take us down. The Aurora began its final, graceful plunge. The ship groaned softly as it met the upper atmosphere, a friction that painted the exterior in a shimmering sheet of plasma. Inside, the crew was a symphony of focus efficiency. Rhea's hands danced across the controls, her every movement a product of thousands of hours in simulators. She guided the ship through layers of thin, wispy clouds that glowed pink in the light of the distant star. The vast red plain of Crimson Valley grew larger in the view screen, a canvas of impossible color. The landing gear extended with a satisfying clunk. The ship descended, the thrusters kicking up small clouds of fine, red dust. Then, a gentle shudder ran through the deck plates, a vibration that spread from the soles of their feet to the tops of their heads. And then, silence, a profound, heavy silence. The Aurora was down. They had arrived. Mission Control, this is Aurora. We have successfully landed on Altheria. I repeat, we are on the surface. The Eagle has landed in a sea of red. Everything is under control. A new hope echoed in his voice, a hope that was broadcast across 40 light-years of empty space, a message that would take decades to be heard. But here, now, it was a victory. The airlock began its slow, pressurized cycle. The hiss of hydraulics was the only sound. When the ramp finally lowered, it was like the opening of a curtain onto a new stage of existence. The sight that met them was beyond any simulation, any artist's rendering. It was a world painted in 1,000 shades of red. The sand under their feet was a fine, crimson powder that felt like silk between the treads of their boots. In the distance, mesas of rust-colored rock jutted from the landscape like the ruins of ancient gods. Strange, twisted trees, their bark the color of dried blood, reached for a sky that was a pale, dusty rose. And in the far distance, a vast, red sea lapped against the shore of crimson sand, its waves moving with a strange, syrupy tranquility, as if time itself flowed slower here. But amidst this overwhelming redness, there were sparks of impossible color. Plants, with broad, bioluminescent leaves, pulsed with a soft, ethereal blue and violet light. And the air carried a strange, sweet scent like a mix of honeysuckle and ozone, the perfume of an alien world. The team, clad in their bulky white spacesuits, exited the ship one by one, their boots leaving the first human footprints on this new world. The gravity was slightly less than Earth's, giving their movements an odd, buoyant grace. It felt like walking on the bottom of a vast, red ocean. Ethan, you have to see this. These plants, they don't use chlorophyll. The spectral analysis is showing something else entirely, a pigment we've never seen before. A kind of carotenoid on steroids. This is the biological discovery of the century. I need a sample. No, I need all the samples. She carefully extended a multi-tool from her suit's arm, a sterile collector humming softly as it took a small clipping from a glowing violet leaf. Commander, full atmospheric scan is complete. The air is breathable, but my initial analysis stands. It contains those strange particulates. Our suit's filters are handling them, but I wouldn't recommend taking your helmet off just yet. This place is active, biologically. Let's not get complacent. The days that followed were a blur of discovery and methodical work. They set up a perimeter of sensor arrays, deployed a small weather station, and began the painstaking process of cataloging their new home. They discovered copper-based organisms in the Red Seas, creatures that looked like metallic jellyfish, pulsing with a gentle, internal light. They found animals that scurried through the red dust, six-legged rodents with chitinous plates that shimmered like opals. Initially, the planet seemed like a paradise, a tranquil haven. But as the days turned into weeks, small, unsettling things began to surface. The animal would always flee long before the crew arrived, as if they could sense their presence from kilometers away. A strange, oily shimmer would appear on the surface of the red lakes at dusk, changing patterns with the angle of the setting sun. And at night, the glowing plants would begin to pulse in a slow, rhythmic sequence, illuminating the landscape with an unseen, silent light. These signs were faint, almost imperceptible, but they were whispers, harbingers of a great fire yet to come. The next 10 years passed in a strange, isolated blur. The Aurora team had made Altheria their home. Cut off from Earth, a 40-year communication lag making real-time contact impossible. They had become a new family, bound by shared purpose and mutual dependence. They discovered unique ecosystems, studied the strange behaviors of the native fauna, and experimented with hydroponics, growing Earth crops in the sterile environment of the ship's cargo bay. They built a small, secure camp around the Aurora, a bubble of humanity in an alien world. In those 10 years, the team faced moments that tested them to their core. There was the great dust storm of year 2, a hurricane of red sand that scoured the landscape for 3 days. The crew was trapped inside the Aurora, the roar of the wind constant. Terrifying presence, the red dust so thick they couldn't see an inch outside the windows. They feared the ship would be crushed under the weight of it. But Jax and Rio worked together, reinforcing the ship's external shield emitters and recalibrating the structural integrity field. And they survived the ordeal, emerging to a landscape wiped clean, their camp buried but their ship unharmed. Another time, a miscalculation by Jax during a power system upgrade caused a cascading failure, plunging the ship into complete darkness and silence for 3 days. In those 3 days, they faced the raw, terrifying reality of their vulnerability. They huddled together, sharing stories and rations, their only light the faint glow of Elena's bacteria cultures. But every time they stood together, their bonds forged stronger in the crucible of adversity. These years transformed them from a crew into a family. Rhea was no longer the rookie pilot. She was a veteran of 100 alien storms. And Ethan had begun to see her not just as a subordinate, but as his successor. But the biggest discovery, the one that would change everything, came when Kenji, analyzing high-resolution orbital scans, found something impossible in the distant mountains. Ethan, Jax, come look at this. These formations, they're not geological. The angles are too perfect. These are pyramids. They were built. There's intelligent life here. Ethan, we had to find them. The decision was made. The team prepared the rover, a rugged, all-terrain vehicle, for the long journey. The trip took several days, each night spent huddled in the rover, listening to the strange sounds of the alien night. As they drew closer, they were met with a surprising sight. The area around the pyramids was not a barren wasteland. It was a patchwork of cultivated fields, strange, glowing green plants growing in neat rows. There were structures that looked like laboratories, and others that resembled hospitals, all built from the same reddish, stone-like material. And then they saw them, humanoid creatures, tending the fields. They were tall and powerfully built, with a physique reminiscent of ancient Greek statues, but they possessed advanced farming techniques that seemed to blend agriculture with biotechnology. It was a strange, paradoxical mix of antiquity and far-future science. The first contact was peaceful, cautious. The Altherians, as the team had named them, expressed a friendship that was tinged with an undercurrent of fear. The language barrier was immense, but they built a bridge of communication through gestures and simple symbols. The Altherians were weak and tranquil during the day, moving with a slow, deliberate grace, conserving their energy. But as the red sun began to set, they would retreat into their bunkers, hidden deep beneath the pyramids. The space travelers didn't know the truth of the night. They didn't know that these seemingly peaceful humanoids transformed into another form when darkness fell, a hunter's form. And they were watching their every move. That night, as Altheria's red moon, a smaller, captured asteroid, cast a crimson glow on the sky, Ethan sat in a command chair on the Aurora, recording his log. Log day 3650. 10 years for us on Altheria. A decade. We have discovered a new civilization, but something feels incomplete. They are welcoming, but guarded. They share their food, their knowledge of the land, but they won't let us into their homes, especially at night. They say the night air carries a sleeping sickness that is dangerous for them. I want to believe them. I have to, but my gut is telling me that this peace is a calm before a storm. He closed the log file and looked out the Aurora's window at the distant pyramids. In the crimson moonlight, they seemed to pose a strange, silent threat, as if ancient monsters were sleeping within them, and any moment they could awaken. The week after the death of their crewmate, Vikram, in a tragic exploration accident, was shrouded in a strange, heavy silence within the Aurora. It was a silence that follows a great shock, a silence filled with unspoken grief and questions. But on the surface of Altheria, life went on at its regular, placid pace. The Altherians continued to work in their bioluminescent fields, their movements as slow and deliberate as ever, as if the death of a visitor was a meaningless event, a leaf falling in a forest they didn't care about. It was a callousness that was more terrifying than any open hostility. The next few months marked the beginning of a new relationship, one built on a foundation of shared purpose but poisoned by a growing suspicion. By day, the space travelers and the Altherians worked side by side. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear, tried to learn their unique farming techniques. One day, an elderly Altherian, his face a map of serene wrinkles, beckoned her over to a large, pulsating plant. He touched the plant stalk with a long, slender finger, and a bright, sweet-smelling sap oozed out. He carefully dripped this glowing sap onto a dormant seed. In moments, The seed writhed and sprouted, growing into a small, vibrant seedling right before her eyes. My God, this is biologically accelerated growth. It's like 1,000 years of evolution packed into a few seconds. How is this possible? What is that sap? The elderly Altherian gave a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He pointed to the sky, then to the ground, then to his own chest. A simple, elegant message. We are part of this planet, and it is part of us. That evening, Elena recorded in her personal diary, her voice a mix of excitement and unease. They are marvelous. Their understanding of life, of genetics, is centuries beyond ours. They maintain a unique, symbiotic balance with nature. They give us their fruits, which analysis shows are packed with complex proteins and micronutrients, incredibly beneficial for our bodies. But one thing is strange. I've been here for months, and I have never seen a child, or an elder truly infirm. They all seem to be in the prime of their lives. It's as if their society is composed only of adults, all of roughly the same age. This is not normal. It's not natural. Dr. Kenji Tanaka, meanwhile, was making his own disturbing discoveries. He spent his days in a small chamber the Altherians had provided, studying the symbols and drawings carved into the stone walls. Their language was complex, not spoken but projected, a series of images and feelings that they seemed to push directly into the mind. It was difficult to interpret, like trying to read a dream. One day, while studying a large mural depicting the cycle of day and night, he noticed something odd. The symbols for day, sun, and growth were made with soft, flowing, curved lines, but the symbols for night, darkness, and sleep were made with sharp, jagged, cutting lines, as if something was being torn apart. One symbol in particular frightened him, a figure of a man, peaceful and smiling, but with a shadow behind it that had claws and fire in its eyes. The Altherians were friendly and generous by day, but at night, the transformation was absolute. They would retreat into their pyramids, sealing the heavy stone doors behind them. They had explained that the night cold was harmful to their physiology, that they entered a state of deep hibernation. But Jax Techmiller was not convinced. His sensors, placed discreetly around the alien settlement, had been picking up strange energy readings from beneath the pyramids every single night. One evening, Jax called Ethan to his cramped workshop, a room filled with humming servers and tangled wires. The air smelled of ozone and hot metal. He placed his data tablet on the workbench, the screen glowing with a complex thermal image. "Commander, you need to see this. This isn't right. They're lying to us. I've been running deep penetration thermal scans on their bunkers for weeks. Look at the temperature signature. During the day, it's cool, stable, like a cave. But at night, the temperature inside spikes. It doesn't decrease, it increases. Significantly, as if some large machine or some organism is undergoing a massive metabolic process. The energy level I'm reading from under that central pyramid is equivalent to a small city. A small, active city. Ethan looked at the screen, the swirling red and orange patterns a stark contrast to the cool blue of the surrounding rock. Kenji's terrifying drawings flashed in his mind. The sharp lines for night. The clawed shadow. Are you sure about this, Jax? Could it be a geothermal vent? Some kind of natural phenomenon? No, sir. The energy signature is too regular. It has a rhythm, a pulse. It's impossible for my equipment to be wrong on this. They're not sleeping, Commander. They're doing something else down there. And whatever it is, it's big. The fragile peace was shattered not by discovery, but by an accident. A tragic, meaningless accident that will reveal the true, monstrous nature of their hosts. One day, a young space traveler named Leo, Jax's assistant and a brilliant engineer in his own right, was working with an Altherian, trying to reverse engineer an Altherian tool. It was a simple-looking device made of a porous, stone-like material, but powered by a strange crystal at its core. Leo, talented but a bit impatient, wanted to see how it reacted to a controlled energy surge. He fed a little too much power into the crystal from his portable scanner. There was no explosion. There was a sharp, high-pitched hiss, like a snake striking. The crystal fractured, and a razor-sharp shard, a sliver of crystallized energy, flew through the air and buried itself in Leo's chest, piercing his suit with impossible ease. He didn't even have time to cry out. He just staggered back, his eyes wide with shock, and fell to the ground, his lifeblood seeping from the tiny wound, the brilliant red of his blood mixing with the deep red of the alien sand. The other space travelers rushed over, their medical training kicking in, but it was too late. The shard had passed through his suit and severed his aorta. He was dead in seconds. But what happened next was more horrifying than the accident itself. The Altherians, who were so tranquil and serene by day, suddenly grew agitated. A strange, cold glint appeared in their eyes. They stopped their work and slowly surrounded Leo's body, their faces devoid of any human emotion. No grief, no compassion, no shock. Just a cold, detached, scientific curiosity. Back away. Get away from him. He is one of ours. But the Altherians didn't listen. They didn't even seem to hear him. One of them stepped forward and, with a reverence that was sickening to watch, touched Leo's body. Then, slowly, they lifted his body and began carrying it towards the main pyramid. Stop! Where are you taking him? He's our crewmate. Our friend. You don't touch him. Ethan grabbed Jax and held him back, his own grief a cold knot in his stomach. He knew that any confrontation, any act of violence, would be disastrous. They were outnumbered and on the aliens' turf. But that night, no one on the Aurora slept. They understood, with a chilling certainty, that these creatures were not their friends. They were devoid of human empathy. To them, a dead human body was not a person to be mourned, but a specimen to be studied. The team made a dangerous, unanimous decision. They needed to know what happened inside the pyramids at night. They needed to see the truth with their own eyes. Jax, channeling his anger and grief into a cold, focused fury, worked through the night. He took a small, maintenance drone, no bigger than a bird, and retrofitted it with a high-resolution camera and a stealth coating. He found a tiny crack in the pyramid's foundation, a fissure left by some ancient tremor, just large enough for the drone to squeeze through. That night, with a red moon high in the sky and the planet bathed in its eerie glow, they gathered in the Aurora's command center. Their faces were illuminated by the drone's feed on the main screen. Ethan gave the nod. Jax, his fingers flying across the controls, sent the drone in. On the monitors, the team watched the drone's feed, holding their collective breath. The drone traveled through a dark, damp tunnel. The walls were not stone. They were biological, moist, and covered with a strange, shimmering mucus that seemed to pulsate slowly, as if the drone were flying through the veins of some colossal, living creature. What the drone's camera showed in the central cavern was more terrifying than their worst nightmares. The cavern was vast, the size of a cathedral. The walls were covered with the same shimmering biological substance, which glowed with a faint, internal light. And in the center of the cavern were the Altherians. But they were not the same peaceful, humanoid farmers they had shared meals with. Their skin was a deep, scaly red, their faces elongated into predatory snouts. Their hands had transformed into claws, sharp and black, and their eyes glowed with a fierce, hungry yellow light in the darkness. They were in another form, a hunter's form. It was a horrifying, complete metamorphosis. Oh my God, they're monsters. The sleeping sickness, it's not a sickness. It's a transformation. The drone's camera zoomed in. The monsters were studying Leo's body. They had torn open his suit with their claws, as if it were paper. They were dissecting his organs with chilling precision, cutting them up and examining them, like a team of scientists experimenting on a lab rat. One monster was meticulously assembling Leo's skeletal structure on the ground with small, sharp stones. Another was holding his brain, turning it over and over, its glowing eyes scanning every fold and crevice. And then, one of them lifted its head and looked directly at the drone. It was as if it had known it was there all along. Its glowing, yellow eyes locked onto the drone's lens. It opened its mouth, but no sound came out. Instead, a sharp, vicious, and utterly alien shriek echoed directly in their minds, a psychic attack that felt like a spike of ice being driven into their brains. The drone screen filled with static and then went black. It saw us. The psychic feedback fried the drone circuits. The connection is cut. Now the game had changed irrevocably. The space travelers were no longer researchers or guests. They were prey, caught in a trap of their own making. That night, a strange, collective voice echoed in their minds, a message from the Altherians, a chorus of cold, predatory thoughts. Your curiosity is a disease. It will kill you. The day is for the peaceful. The night is for the strong. Next time, we will come for your living bodies. Your transformation will be educational. The next day, when the team met the Altherians in the fields, they were the same peaceful humans again. But now, something else showed in their eyes, a cold, calculating cunning. They knew the space travelers had discovered their secret, and now they were waiting for a mistake, for a moment of weakness, for the cover of darkness. That evening, Ethan gathered his team in the Aurora's briefing room. The mood was grim, but his face showed not defeat, but a hard, unyielding decision. We will not be afraid anymore. We will not be victims. We will fight. We will use their own tactics against them. By day, we will continue our charade. We will extract as much information as we can. We will find their weaknesses. We will learn their patterns. And at night we will not be the hunted. We will be the hunters. But a hunter that sets a trap. A new fire burned in his eyes, a fire of defiance. They were no longer explorers of space. They were warriors fighting for their very existence, and their final gambit was about to begin. The Aurora was transformed. The ship's lab became a workshop, the cargo bay a training ground. The crew members, once scientists, were now soldiers, their faces etched with the hardness of a solid, unbreakable decision. Jack's tech, Miller, practically lived in his workshop. He was modifying the Aurora's external lights, not just for illumination, but as weapons. Based on Elena's discovery, they knew the Altherian's nighttime skin was extremely sensitive to bright light, a form of photosensitivity. Jax's plan was to use the ship's powerful external lamps to create a blinding flash, a weapon of pure light. Commander, I've rigged the external floodlights to a single capacitor. We can overload them and create a flash that'll be brighter than a supernova. It should stun them, maybe even burn their retinas. But it's a one-shot deal. It'll fry the entire lighting system. We'll be blind after that. Dr. Elena and Dr. Kenji were busy finding the Altherians' weaknesses. Elena had discovered that their transformation was dependent on a specific energy they absorbed from the glowing plants. She had synthesized a chemical compound, a herbicide of sorts, that could temporarily neutralize those plants, cutting off the aliens' energy source. Dr. Kenji, studying their hunting pattern from the drone footage, found that they cornered their prey in a specific, coordinated pattern, a pattern that had a weakness, a small gap in their formation where they would momentarily expose themselves. But they faced another problem, an internal one. Rhea, the young pilot, still in shock from Leo's death and now consumed by a thirst for vengeance, decided to take matters into her own hands. She wanted to use one of the Aurora's small, high-speed fighter craft to launch a preemptive strike on one of the smaller alien camps. One evening, she confronted Ethan on the bridge. "This isn't right, Commander. We're hiding here like rats. We need to fight. We need to avenge Leo. They took him, Ethan. They dissected him like he was nothing. This isn't about revenge, Rhea. This is a fight for survival. Going off half-cocked is suicide. We do this together, by the plan. I don't give you permission. You don't need to. Leo was my friend. I won't let his death be in vain. I won't just sit here and wait for them to come for us." But Rhea disobeyed Ethan's order. Blinded by grief and rage, she stole a small fighter jet, the Wasp, meant for reconnaissance missions, and took flight. Ethan and the rest of the team watched in stunned silence on the radar as the small blip sped away from the Aurora. "Rhea, come back. That's a direct order. Stand down immediately." "I'm sorry, Commander. This is for Leo." As she approached the alien camp, she realized, too late, that it was a trap. The aliens had been expecting her. The moment she entered the target zone, the ground erupted. Sharp, focused energy beams, like invisible lances, shot up from hidden emplacements and attacked her jet. Rhea tried to evade them, her piloting skills pushed to the absolute limit. But it was too much. The Wasp was hit multiple times. A massive, silent explosion occurred in the thin atmosphere, creating a brief, brilliant ball of fire against the red sky. Rhea's jet was destroyed. A heavy, crushing silence fell over the Aurora. Elena began to weep softly. Jack slammed his fist on the console, the sound of a mun breaking. But her bravery, her tragic, futile attack, had given the team a chance. While the aliens were distracted by Rhea's sacrifice, Jax used the electromagnetic pulse from her explosion to boost his signal, a final, desperate attempt to call for help. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. This is the ISC Aurora on the planet Altheria. We are under attack by a hostile indigenous life form. I repeat, we are under attack. An alien ship has us cornered. We need immediate rescue. If anyone is hearing this, please help us. And then a miracle happened. A reply came through the static, a message that had traveled for years, a message of hope. Aurora, this is the rescue ship Hope. We have received your distress call. We are entering orbit around Altheria now. What is your status? Hold on. We are coming for you. Earth had received their message, sent 6 months prior. A rescue ship, the Hope, had been dispatched immediately, and now it was here. But the aliens were also ready. As the Hope entered orbit, a section of the distant mountains peeled away, revealing a ship of their own. It was no human-made vessel. It looked biological, as if it had been grown from the same material as the pyramids, a monstrous, organic weapon. As soon as the rescue ship Hope entered orbit, the alien ship attacked it. A horrific war broke out in the silent vacuum of space. A battle filled with silent explosions of laser fire, flying debris, and desperate evasive maneuvers. A war for the existence of both human and alien. The Aurora, a research vessel, not a warship, also joined the fight. Ethan was in the pilot's seat, his hands gripping the controls like iron, his every instinct screaming. Jax was yelling in the engine room, his voice a constant stream of data and warnings. Commander, the alien ship shields are fluctuating. They're strong, but they have a weak point. Their power core is on the ventral side, less armored. It's a long shot, but it's the only shot we've got. Ethan devised a dangerous, almost suicidal plan. He took the Aurora on a high-speed dive, skimming the upper atmosphere of Altheria, using the planet's gravity to slingshot the ship. The Aurora shot out from under the alien ship like a stone from a catapult, a maneuver that pushed the ship's structural integrity to its absolute limit. Jax, now! Jax slammed his hand on a firing console. All of Aurora's weapons, all of its remaining energy, were channeled into a single, massive laser beam that lanced out and struck the alien ship's reactor. The sound of a massive, silent explosion echoed in the silence of space. The alien ship broke apart, a shower of burning debris. The rescue ship Hope was safe. The surviving crew of the Aurora, Ethan, Elena, Jax, and Kenji, had won. But in this victory, they had lost 3 of their own. They had lost their innocence. The Aurora's crew was transferred to the Hope. As they headed back to Earth, a strange, heavy calm settled over them. They had won, but the price was unbearable. They decided to return to Earth. But due to the physical laws of space travel, the time dilation effects of their journey meant that while 6 months had passed for them, 100 years had passed on Earth. When the surviving crew of the Aurora set foot on Earth, they were in an unfamiliar world. Their families, their friends, everyone they had ever known, had turned to dust with the passage of century. The world had changed. Flying cars dotted the sky, buildings scraped the heavens, and people's clothes, their language, everything was different. Dr. Elena was looking at a futuristic monument in a park, on which were the names of all 7 original crew members of the Aurora mission, listed as presumed lost in space. Tears were in her eyes. We found a new world, but we lost our own. Commander Ethan stood holding an old, faded photograph in his hand, a picture in which the entire team was smiling, Leo, Rhea, and the 3rd crewmate lost in the storm years ago. The lesson we learned is greater than any discovery. Unity, discipline, and the right strategy are the keys to survival. And yes, never trust the unknown, especially at night. Their story became a legend, a cautionary tale told to every new space traveler. The mystery of the red planet Altheria remains. But its struggle taught humanity that we are not alone in the universe, and that danger can be hidden in anything that glitters. And so, in the red dust of Altheria, a mission that promised a new beginning became an end for 4 people who returned to a world that no longer recognized them. They had lost their home, but they had given humanity a new, more cautious direction among the stars.